All right, here with Laura Wilson from the University of Indianapolis. As we talk about this seventh district primary, Laura, this is a race that typically doesn't get a lot of attention. Remains to be seen if it will this year, but it certainly seems as if Carson's primary challenger, George Hornado, is raising money and trying to take it to the congressman. Kind of an ugly back and forth this week about ICE. What are you seeing in this race, just in terms of where it's at so far and how much attention it's getting compared to previous years?
Hornado is certainly giving Carson a challenge here. And I think that is very different from previous election cycles, where typically Carson hasn't even had a real competitive primary, nor a general election for that matter. And you see Hornado coming in, adequately fundraising, but also some of these attacks in terms of politics uh, that we would expect to see in a primary competition. Now, I think it's interesting because Indiana, and it is very solidly blue. So if there was a challenge to Carson's incumbency, it's not likely to come in the general election against a Republican, but more likely in a primary such as this one against a fellow Democrat.
Carson still obviously would have to be considered the favorite. He's an incumbent. He still has a lot of money. But the comments that Hornado made about ICE, Carson responded in a way that Hornado didn't appreciate. But what does that show that perhaps that this is a challenge that Carson's taking seriously?
I think what it shows is Hornado is excited to get the attention, and he's very wisely, very strategically going to utilize that. He's going to leverage that. Carson is a very strong incumbent. Hornado is certainly going to try to challenge him, and it is an opportunity as a challenger to point out the language that's being used and to say, what have you done? Right? Have you done enough? The best challenge in a primary is going to be say you aren't liberal enough, you aren't Democrat enough for this particular congressional seat. And that's exactly what Hornado's trying to do. I will say name recognition matters a lot, money matters a lot, and what you've done in office. And Carson has done a lot. He's been in office for a long time as an incumbent. So those are some of the benefits that he's just going to naturally have in that position. But I do think you see this escalation and it's this little spat back and forth, drawing more attention to this race. And it's always going to be helpful for the challenger who's going to want to bring that attention and make it more competitive in their favor.
Because, as you point out, it really is always an uphill battle for anyone wanting to challenge or run against any sitting member of Congress.
It absolutely is. And in congressional elections, we estimate about 90% of the time the challenger wins re-election. So it's not to say that the incumbent always wins. Excuse me, the incumbent wins 90% of the time. Apologize there. Right? But most of the time, the incumbent is going to win. So for that challenger, it's that slim, rare opportunity. Has to have the stars align. And it's going to make it difficult, but it's not to say, of course, that it's impossible.
Dr. Laura Wilson from the University of Indianapolis, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks, Dan.